Okay, welcome everyone. And I will hand it off to Jill Kinnick, our APMM board president. Jill?
Hi, good to see everybody here. Wonderful to have the new faces on board. I welcome you. It's a terrific opportunity for us to cross-utilize our skill sets and learn a little bit more about what our various model makers can do here. I don't want to bite into the time too much, but I want to thank the museum for being with us today and open this up for questions. Michael, anything you want to add to this?
Just that it makes me really happy to see you all here, and it's kind of been a fun little thing to try to, well, get our organizations to mingle a bit, honestly. So been happy to try to bridge that gap and see what kind of common ground there could be between the two organizations.
Excellent, thank you. So Amy, would you like to jump in now and tell us a little bit about yourself and what we just saw on the video?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me to participate today. Laura Taylor, our curator of interpretation, actually did this video. Unfortunately, Laura decided to leave the museum in December, so we don't have a curator of interpretation at this time, so I'm stepping in. I've been at the museum for about 4.5 years as the curator of collections. And in that time, kind of divided my time between overseeing the care and maintenance of the collection and also the development of the collection, and then curating exhibitions.
Thank you. So for those who are assembled here, is there anyone who has a question? You can use one of two methods. You can use the digital method and raise your hand electronically, or you can just wave your hand. I'll go ahead and take it off of speaker view so we can see each other. And if you will please just raise your hand or just indicate if you have a question, or just even anything you'd like to share, or even just introduce yourself.
I'll jump in.
All right.
My name's Michael Yurkovic. I'm in Chicago, and I wish I was in California right now. But anyway, I'm a member of IGMA, along with a lot of other folks I see here today. Thanks for the invitation. It's really great to have this opportunity for some cross-pollination, My background is in industrial design, so I've interfaced with a lot of professional model making shops over the years, as well as building stuff myself. And now I'm in the miniatures, but it's really great. I'm really excited to know more about your community. I know there's people who can talk to the IGMA probably better than I can as well. But, I'm just really glad to be here. And I hope, I'd like to follow up with you folks. I was even looking at the memberships and such. But anyway, that's enough from me. Nice to see you all.
Thank you, Michael. Well, before I have too many false pretenses here, I just want to give you full disclosure. I am not in California, although the organization started there. I am in upstate New York, where it is very snowy. So about as far from California as is humanly possible, but we love it here. So that's where the APMM is headquartered, just because that's where I am. But we have members all over the country and actually all over the world. And so these conferences these virtual conferences are our way of doing it now, but ordinarily we will meet every couple of years in a different location across the US. We haven't ventured out of the contiguous US yet, but hope to do that one day because we have a lot of members all over. But the virtual conferences were a response to the COVID pandemic. We had a great conference planned for Seattle, Washington, a town you might have heard of, that was pretty prominent in the 2020 pandemic. That was kind of ground zero for many people. And so we had to cancel that conference. And as we were in the process of canceling, we were very sad because we'd been working on this project for almost a year, and model makers from all over were planning to get together. But when that didn't happen, we knew that something else had to happen. And so in March of 2021, we launched our very first virtual conference. And that was basically 4 marathon days of workshops and tours. We had workshops on a number of topics. We had tours ranging from, I think one of our architectural firms had locations, 4 parts of the world. We talked to a model shop in India that gave us a lovely tour. So we were all over, and it was a great opportunity for us to share, even at a time when there was nothing else going on and people weren't really getting out much. So we were able to share those 4 days, lots of great information. We met with vendors, we heard from vendors, we talked to one another, had some really great learning opportunities, and also some chances just to speak to each other, which I think is really important. Is there anything else about the Torian Miniature Museum, or any other topic about miniatures that you all would like to bring up? Yes.
Yeah, Wendy Lawson. I was really struck by the 3 placeholders in the contest at the beginning of the video, the people who won the model making, but they were only briefly shown. I would have liked to have seen them a little bit longer on the screen to study the different models. They were so different from each other, and hear maybe a little bit more about them, or see them on different years. I don't know which year that
Are you
was.
on Instagram by chance?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Hashtag APMM, hashtag get paid to make. Sam, what's the one
I
specific?
think it's hashtag APMM awards,
Okay.
and there
We had about 170 absolutely outstanding entries in that competition. And they are all still, I was just trying to check Instagram right now to get it. They are still all on Instagram, and you can take a good look at the work.
Yeah, when I saw who got the 3rd prize, I was like, that was the 3rd prize.
I can promise you I was not building like that when I was their age. So we were impressed as well.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the toughest jobs, I think, was being a judge in that competition. It had to have been excruciating. I wouldn't have gone near it. I think, Stuart, I think you had your hand raised as well.
Yes, Stuart Wakefield here. I live in Utah, Lehi, Utah, a member of the IGMA community. I have a question for Amy at the museum. Do you continue to acquire miniatures and other items for the museum?
We do, actually. Barbara Marshall, a co-founder, retired in 2010. And at that point, the museum didn't acquire anything for a few years, other than things that would have been offered by donation. But in 2017, we had Miniature Masterworks, and I see some of the artists that were here in 2017 for that event. And that was the period when we decided to get back into acquiring miniatures for the collection. And Laura and I have gone to the Bishop Show in Chicago every year that they've had it since 2018. And then also we actually are also receiving donations to the collection of miniatures. And one of the things I've been really thrilled to see happen is that we've gotten donations from artists themselves or from their heirs, thinking that we would be a good place to help preserve their legacy.
And what you look for in acquiring new pieces?
That's a great question. Our scope is really defined by what the standards are of the International Guild of Miniature Artisans. So members of the guild or people that are working at the same level as members of the guild are the artists that we generally acquire work from.
All right.
And that a lot of our acquisition is based on the vision of our original co-founder, Barbara Marshall. She had a certain aesthetic, and so we try to stay within her aesthetic. Although one area that we've really started to acquire more of that Barbara wasn't collecting was mid-century modern. And we've acquired several very nice pieces over the last few years.
All right. Well, thank you. I've not been to your museum, but it's on my bucket list.
Oh, I hope you can come sometime.
Thank you.
Sam?
Looks like Miles has his
Yeah,
hand up.
Miles, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm Miles Hale. I'm here in Kansas City. Amy, you're going to talk to us, I think, here in a couple, 3 months at the Model Railroad Group. My background picture here is the Kansas City Stockyards entry in 1/4" scale, complete with interior lighting and everything. So anyway, thank you for coming and talking to us in advance, and we look forward to it.
Look forward to it as well.
Sam, Mike again.
Yes.
Yeah, gosh, I know nothing about APMM, okay? And well, I mean, I'm getting some idea that it's this consortium of model makers who, and all that, but when's the next conference? Can you talk about membership and benefits of joining the organization and that type of thing a little bit?
Absolutely. The organization charges dues because we're a membership organization, and the dues are $150 a year. And that's for professionals, for individuals, sole proprietors, corporations. If you are in a very large shop or have more than 6 people, then we give discounts. But otherwise, it's for corporations, and for schools, it's $500 a year. But for individuals, it's $150. And if you're retired or a student, we'll discount that even further. And it's, I believe it's $30 for students and retired folks. The organization's many positives are include the fact that we just get together and can talk and share resources. We have forums on our website where if you have a question either to ask another model maker or for the general public to ask a model maker, we have something called Ask a Pro. So if someone who's, an amateur or someone who's just getting started in model making has just a really quote unquote dumb question, there are no dumb questions because we probably have a good answer. And so you can post something to the forum. The other forums are limited to those who are members, because it really is a very much a professional tool that people use to communicate with each other about resources, about materials, about processes. The other benefits include being able to talk to vendors who understand what model makers are looking for. People who are making items from scratch have a very different requirement of materials than the general public. We're not buying things off the shelf. We're usually improvising with something that is not really meant for that purpose. And so because of that, we need vendors who really understand the kind of work that model makers do. Just for the record, I say we a lot, but I'm not a model maker. I'm married to one. So I know about the industry a little bit, and I've worked here long enough, but I don't think I could ever do what all of y'all do and really literally make things from nothing. That's truly a skill and a gift. So those are just some of the things. Jill and Michael, Bruce, I think you're on. Any of our folks want to mention some of the other benefits of the APMM?
We are a group of professional model makers, both in small shops. I'm a one-person shop. We are also embedded within corporations. Michael works at Garmin. Who else is on here? Paul Chabala is Crown Equipment, who makes forklifts. So it's a very broad range. We share a tremendous amount of resources in terms of technical knowledge. You can imagine in some of the major manufacturing companies in the United States, the need for the technical knowledge, a lot of printing skills, CNC skills, computer numeric control milling machines, lasers. We tend to really push toward technology without forgetting the fine skill of the hand craftsman. Personally, I was trained as a silversmith and sort of stepped sideways into industrial model making. And we all have very diverse backgrounds, but we come together as a community to share resources. I guess the miniaturists all specialize, whether it be metal goods or miniature furniture. Very much like the APMM, we specialize, but we inevitably need to call on each other to expand our knowledge base. So it's just a great community of professionals that come together.
Can I speak as the #1 salesperson for APMM? I always tell everybody when they're talking about it, the biggest advantage is the fact that you can post a question on our forums, and usually within minutes, hours at the very most, you will get an answer. And that's how to chrome plate wood, how to chrome plate plastic. You get the wildest questions. I guarantee you somebody in some industry connected with APM has done it before, and you will have an answer that works. Plus, they'll tell you which company to go to get it done and what their contact person is. It's worth every penny of the membership just for that. Everything else is wonderful, but just having that knowledge base available to you, it's like having Google of model making all concentrated in our one group.
I like that. We're the Google of model making. That's great. And Nell, you have your hand up.
I even found the little thing to click to put it up there. I'm so
Nice.
proud of myself. I try to do things right. I'm also a member of IGMA. My background is a little different. I was a special effects model maker in Hollywood for a number of years. Interestingly, I left to do what I do now, which is make 144 scale structures that I sell to collectors. In 1993, which I believe is the year you all started your organization.
That's right.
One reason I'm a member of the guild is a very important thing for me is that miniatures, fine miniatures, be recognized as an art form. And that's a stated goal of the guild. And I'd be interested to know when you first started. I noticed I was briefly able to look at your website last night. And I noticed when you started, it was around the time when CG was coming in and people were getting worried about their jobs, which was one reason I left, although I really just wanted to do my own work and stop trying to have other people's dreams. But anyway, I'd be interested to know in the beginning what the goals of the organization were and how that has evolved over the years to what you would say your primary goals are today.
Well,
I was there for the
Mhm.
first conference,
yes.
and and we just had a kind of a meeting of the past presidents a few conferences ago, and they mentioned that they were tired of not getting any industry discounts with vendors, and they said we're an industry, and they decided they had to pull together people that were making models as opposed to doing other kinds of manufacturing. So we include industrial design, or people who work in industrial design, product development, architecture, transportation, museums, film, and we single out toys because we had so many toy manufacturers who joined up, and so some of those require miniature work, like film definitely, and architecture, and transportation frequently, and then other work is you're making full size things, or at the opposite end, you're making what I'm going to call megatures. Like you'd be making something for a museum that would be a giant cell, so people could see the inside of a cell. And,
Yeah, I've done megatures. We worked on the Child's Play movies where Chucky was a little doll that came to life. So we had to make giant furniture for the set
Yeah.
so that little person in the Chucky suit would look like he was in scale to the furniture. It was very weird to walk around. You felt like you were a toddler again.
we had one of our members talked about working for P&G and making a giant toilet because they were trying to figure out how little kids could interact with such a big thing, and how to make it safe, and how to get the idea of how the kids see the world. So many hilarious photos were taken by the employees sitting on the giant toilet. But it expanded to primarily make model making a more recognized field by itself, because I would say the majority of model makers are hiding inside another industry. They're working for P&G or Whirlpool or whatever, and or their shop, it has they make models for a number of clients, but kind of generally in a sort of field. Like there's a shop near me that makes a lot of engineering prototypes and appearance models and user testing models for product developers.
So would you say that one of your goals then was to get model making recognized as a legitimate profession and model makers recognized as professionals?
Yeah, we've actually been contacted by the US government saying, here's what we think model making is, as far as like the job descriptions on the US Gov website. And we all looked at it and went, oh, this is anarchy.
I think from the beginning on through to today, the one through point to all of it has been community. I mean, so many of us work in siloed places where there's just like one or two model makers, or, you know, you may work a good chunk of your career in a place like that. You may move to another one, but you're still only interacting with a few model makers in most places. And we're so spread out in general. So to have a place where we could gather, and, you know, at one point, you know, and from time to time, that's a conference. But as time's gone on and the communication methods have changed, it's become more common for us to get together like this. And it's been really nice having, the ability to do these meetups. And that's something we've implemented since COVID, is doing these every other week. We do these meetups along a common theme. And we've had some pretty cool ones. We did one on May the 4th last year with Fawn Davis. As Sam mentioned earlier, he was one of the model makers from the early 90s onward, working on Star Wars and a lot of other science fiction movies and things. And so, for Star Wars Day, we had a meetup with him, and he came in and talked about his experience working on Star Wars and did a lot of, some amazing slides showing some of his work and stuff like that. And we do these, themes, things like that. And we've been doing them pretty consistently for the past year and a half, doing these every 2 weeks. We have another meetup. Some of those are just for the membership. Some of them are open to anyone who wants to come check them out. So we try to get the word out there for the ones that are public.
And it's never our intention to keep information from people. We are happy to share. It's a little easier if we could email our membership group, but if you're interested, if you'd like to, even if you're not quite ready to become a member, just join our mailing list. And then that'll be a good way of you getting a little bit of a reminder when a meetup is coming up. The one we have coming up at the beginning of February is a book talk with somebody who's written about Theodore Conrad, the architectural model maker. And even if you're not into architectural model making, there's still so much to learn with the various techniques, the materials, the contacts, the history. It's just fascinating. And that's, I think, what makes model makers so unique, and makers for that matter so unique, is because regardless of what you're making, you're going to be using some of the same materials and processes.
I put it in the freezer.
That's one thing that Fawn Davis mentioned. Fawn Davis mentioned. We had an interview with him. Terry Wellman, one of our board members who's not on right now, he and I talked with Fawn, and he said model makers are people who pick up an item and don't use it for its intended purpose, but use it for something very different and much more creative than the original purpose. So I think that that transcends the type of work you do, but that it is the work you do. So even if it doesn't apply to you directly, maybe you may have some interest and some value to you. We just recently had a meetup with Joe Nunnick, who was a master builder at Legoland. And man, is that a dream job for some of you? So, we get to hear all kinds of things that enrich our lives and just expand our professionalism. So it's been really great to have these meetups twice a month.
I can speak to Nell's question. When I was a model maker in San Antonio, Texas, I had a special effects company, did props, logos, control motion devices, did everything but pyrotechnics. And all of a sudden, this stupid black box called a computer came along, and I had no work. It wiped out. I thought I was diversified because I was doing architectural models, I was doing special effects, I was doing props for still photographers, and all of a sudden they could create it in the computer. And thank goodness the APMM came along about that time, and in the back pages, they offered a classified. And I wound up getting a job with Vermont American as a model maker there, doing prototyping on their tools, another thing that we've talked about. So at that time, the service of classified job referrals was very helpful to me. The rest of the time when I was working and trying to actually make models, the aspect that I talked about of being able to share ideas certainly came into play and made me much more viable in the jobs that I had. So I think we offer kind of two different things. We can kind of keep you working so that you're not starving and out on the street. And by the same token, we can make you more viable once you get that job and you're actually in somebody's house.
And not all, thanks, Miles, for that. That's a good reminder of one thing that APMM does very well. The other is that it's not just about employment listings, permanent employment. We also have a method to get information out about projects. So someone will contact us and say, I'd like a replica of such and such made. Usually it's aviation or maritime type things, but it could be anything. And people are looking for the oddest projects, and they don't know where to go. They've tried everywhere else, and they get their door slammed in their face, and they come to the APMM. And I'm going to steal Fawn Davis's slogan because I was so impressed by it. But on his website is the slogan, "That's impossible. When do you want it?" And that really that says a lot about what y'all do. So they're not always just permanent jobs, permanent employment situations. They're often project information that we just pass on. We just pass it on because we want someone to be able to make the project and do what needs to be done. So
We also share information on technology. When we first started having meetups and things, 3D printing was brand new. In fact, the only kind of 3D printing really was SLA machines. And everyone's first thought was, it's going to take my job. And then we had a love-hate relationship with 3D printers ever since. And half the time people are saying, oh no, it does all this work that I used to be able to do. And the other half of the time saying, I bought one of these and it's a piece of junk. And all the range in between. So someone would say, I need a 3D printer for my job at our company. What are the pluses and minuses of the Ultimaker 300 or whatever? And we help each other vet out equipment and materials and things like that.
yeah, that is another great benefit, is that to be able to share ideas and to get feedback on certain products or especially equipment. And, you're spending a ton of money and you want to make sure that you're not the only one out there using it, and find out who's happy with it. So that's another great benefit.
Would an IGMA member like to talk to us a little bit about where you started and what you guys all do with each other?
Well, and Elle probably knows exactly the year. I don't. She's still here. I think she is. Annelle Ferguson. It was started in the 70s by people who were making collectible miniatures, and trying to do two things. Number one was find people to buy them. And the other thing was to support each other and to get miniatures recognized as an art form, and I think those two things have always been really important.
Yes.
Not to mention the value of community, because like every other kind of model maker, we were all working in our little studios and thought we were the only people on earth doing it. I literally, I grew up in Michigan, the middle of Michigan, a small town. And I didn't meet anyone else who so much as made a dollhouse until I was in my 20s. But we were everywhere. I mean, there were books about dollhouse miniatures, as they were then called, back in the 50s. But who knew? So those have always been our goals. We promote excellent craftsmanship, I would say, and they'll jump in anytime. Excellence in craftsmanship by having different levels of membership. Which you have to submit pieces. We have artisan, and we have general members, and then we have artisan, and we have fellow members. And to achieve the two levels, artisan and fellow, you have to submit pieces for evaluation by other guild members, and have to be recognized as worthy of that level of membership, which we believe does encourage people to do their very best work. And even so, there's still people out there making miniatures in their homes that we probably have never met. Every once in a while, we do have an annual show. We have the Guild School in Castine, Maine in the summer, which is a whole week of nothing but classes and people making miniatures, it's pretty wonderful because there are 200-300 people there, and that is our focus for the entire week. It's very stimulating, being around other people who do what you do when you're an artist is always a good thing, I think. And so I like the interaction aspect of your organization. Sounds very interesting.
Can I comment?
Oh, please.
Wendy Lawson again. And it is an international guild.
Yes, it's international.
I've been to Castine a couple of times. From Canada, so far away.
Not so far from Castine.
well, it is a 2-day drive.
Oh my.
Because they're north-south highways. Well, they just don't go north-south. They go east-west. But when you get there, you meet people from South Africa, from Australia, from South America, from Japan, from Eastern Europe, sometimes from Russia. The ladies that come from Japan, more power to them, they came. And they didn't speak English, did they? At first.
At first, some of them speak some.
Some of them do, yeah.
And the quality of work they do, it's amazing. And what I would really love to do, they have an annual show. Could I go to Japan and join their classes? I don't think so. Because my Japanese wouldn't even get me from the airport to the hotel. Never mind to the classes and through the classes. But I would love to, because I just admire the work they do. It's so wonderful.
Yeah. I'm Annelle Ferguson. I live in Tennessee, and I have been a guild member for about 30 years. This year, our guild school is celebrating its 40th year of existence. I've been an instructor perhaps 20 something years, I forget exactly, but it is an experience that people continue to want to attend each year. And the discussion about getting there, you have to really want to get there to go. So everybody just says, okay, travel day is a travel day, and just go with the flow. But the International Guild of Miniature Artisans is a unique organization. It started by several people at shows just saying, we need an organization that does recognize miniatures as an art form, and that there can be offered education about miniatures. And that is perhaps what the Guild School is mostly about. So that's it for miniatures. I definitely only deal in 1/12 scale. I am a collector, and I am a needle worker, and I do attend shows periodically. Thank you. This is a wonderful Zoom meeting. Thank you for the invitation. I didn't know you existed, but now I'll look forward to go to your website and learn more. Thank you.
Please do. Feel free to reach out anytime. The email address is very simple, info@modelmakers.org, or you just go to the website and you can find out how to reach out to me or to any of us. Amy, I had a question for you about how do you, I'm pretty sure I know how you protect your models and the miniatures that you have there, but what do you do about when they start to degrade, or if there's any kind of damage? How do you deal with that?
That's a great question. So we actually have about 48% of our miniature collection on display. We're very careful with the light levels and the temperature and humidity to try to keep the environmental conditions appropriate so that the miniatures aren't damaged when they're on display. When they're in storage, same thing. We're very careful with light and temperature and humidity, and they're stored in boxes to actually keep them from the light. When something is damaged, it's interesting, in museums, we generally will contact a professionally trained conservator. But sometimes when we talk to a conservator who's used to working with objects, for example, they may not really have much experience working with miniatures. So sometimes we've actually reached out to other miniature artists or to the artist who made the piece to help us with conservation work. But generally what we try to do is just make sure that everything is kept safe and we don't have to go to that step.
Very good. Thank you.
I had a question for Amy as well, if we have time. I was curious about some of the collaborative projects that some of your artists do, like that room with the amazing floors and the paintings and things that were all done by different artists. Who organizes and wrangles that sort of an undertaking? Is it handled through your organization, or is it handled through, like, do the artists already kind of know each other, so they kind of just work together, you know, call one person will call the other, ask how it's going on those parquet flooring pieces and so on and so forth?
So those are usually artists working together on those. I think Laura showed the example of the Art Deco jewelry store. And in that case, Barbara actually talked to Mulvaney and Rogers initially about making the piece, and then they brought in the other artists to make the pieces. I know that Nell has done collaborative pieces, so she may want to speak to that.
Yeah, I love doing collaborative pieces. It's really, you know, coming out of a model shop in Hollywood, I get lonely working here in my little studio all by myself. And it's fun to come up with projects that incorporate things that I don't really want to do myself for whatever reason, but that I know somebody else who's really good at it. For example, the museum has a piece I made. We call it a baby house. What it is it's an 18th century dollhouse. And the cabinet was made by a friend of mine named Gilbert Mena, who made this gorgeous Baroque cabinet. When you open it, it's full of little Baroque rooms. And I did the room setting. So it was a collaborative piece. And in our world, it's very often the case that artists organize this stuff themselves. Another thing that's in the museum that I've worked on, aside from my own stuff, is there's a 1/4-inch scale, gorgeous 1/4-inch scale dollhouse that Bill Robertson was restoring a few years ago. And it had exquisite furniture, and he had no problem fixing the furniture. However, it was full of flower arrangements, and the flower arrangements had been dried flowers, which I don't use because they deteriorate. So he said, would you mind doing some flower arrangements for this house? Because I don't do flowers. So he sent me all the vases and I made flower arrangements for the house. And we do that sort of thing a lot, I would say. I think a lot of our, Michael, I know, has worked with Beth Freeman Kane, and they've done joint pieces. It's really quite fun.
Nell, can I ask what materials you use for those flowers?
Mostly, believe it or not, plastic. I'm a big fan of styrene. I use it for all kinds of things. And some of them were made from German model parts. There are the crazy Germans, you know, make N scale and HO scale model flowers. So help me, they do. And I took them apart and put them back together because it's against my nature to just use anything as it comes out of the box. I almost physically can't do it.
Sounds like a true maker.
Yeah, that's me. I had to laugh when you said using something for what the purpose it was not intended for.
Right.
That's exactly what I do every day.
That's a hallmark. Edward, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes, this is a question for Amy. Do you have like a list of materials that you do you have like a list of materials that you rather work with? I mean, I know we're working with, you know, real flowers, they deteriorate, you know, maybe also have a list of, you know, okay, we need to stay away from that if we want something to last, you know, a century or so.
We don't really have a list, but we certainly do think about whether that material is really designed to last in perpetuity. And I, you know, sometimes if a material is being used and I have concerns about it, I might talk to the artist about what their experience is with that material. But primarily we acquire the work for the quality of the work and then do our best to preserve it.
All right, thank you.
You know, it's Mike again. Yeah, Nell brought up a good friend of ours, Beth Freeman Kane. She's part of the South African, well, maybe the only South African. No, probably not. No, not the only. There are others, some really great people down there. But Beth specializes in wildlife. And she was even recognized by the country of South Africa with a special like certification, not of insanity, but of exceptional talent. Although when you see your work, it's incredible. But so we've collaborated on things, and just one thing I wanted to bring up, that for us, a lot of times the starting point is the narrative, because we're trying to craft a story, something that people can connect with, hopefully rather immediately, and hopefully not too finely defined, so that they can overlay their own life experience onto it. So that's one thing that, as I've done more miniatures, the narrative, the story behind the piece, and the interrelation of her wildlife forms, along with some of the things that I do better, that are maybe more mechanical or whatever, can take shape. But we like to start with the story, and I think it's a really great way to engage an audience, and then it kind of makes a lot of the detailing that goes along with the piece sort of self-evident, because it's based on a story. So you naturally know what that person might have in their room, or what the environment might be like. But anyway, I think narrative can be a really important part in the miniature world, as well as in more traditional industrial design, or whatever kind of model making too. But anyway, for what it's worth.
Well, also the collaboration in our world can lead to some rather amazingly wonderful and sometimes funny pieces. Beth, who Michael was just talking about, does birds largely. She does lots of other things too. But there is a painter in our world named Johannes Landmann, who's a very fine painter and does replicas of old master paintings. And he did a replica of the goldfinch, the Carl Fabritius painting that became the novel is about. And she made a little goldfish that's perched on the frame of the painting and has made, shall we say, a deposit on the frame. And I sometimes collect miniatures, and I couldn't afford it, but if I could have afforded it, I would have bought that in a second. It was just amazing, and people were going crazy for it. It's a little humor is sometimes a good thing. Another one I've seen is Mark Murphy, who makes fine scale furniture, usually early American, but not entirely. Also does Japanese. But anyway, he made a Windsor chair, but instead of the spokes in the back, instead of fan back Windsor chair, instead of just stopping at the chair rail, went through and became branches. And his friend Mary Grady O'Brien made little folk art birds that are perched in the branches. So we're going off in a little bit different direction than what people usually think of as, well, you're going to replicate this or you're going to replicate that. There's a little twist to it that makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
Edward, do you have another question?
Stuart Wakefield again. I think this is a question for you, Nell. Being a member of IGMA, I've often wondered if there is some kind of a directory of members along with their craft or their specialty that I could refer to. I work on architectural miniatures, and sometimes I'll need something for that particular project I'm working on, and I'm going, where do I go to find somebody who can do this for me? Is there such a thing as a directory? I've not seen one.
No, there
There's
is
a
not.
membership list on the website, isn't there, Nell? And I think also a list of fellows and artisans and what their specialty is. If you follow
I'm not
me.
sure. Are you sure it lists their specialties?
No, I'm not sure. I'm going to find out for you, Stuart.
Yes, it does, actually.
Contact the president of the organization
Yeah.
whenever their name will be on the website, and they could help you in whatever direction.
We also have a miniatures forum, Fine Miniatures Forum, I think is the fine.org, I think. Anyway, tell you what, send me an email, Stuart, at miniminis@aol.com, MINIS. I'll put it in the chat. And I will hook you up with something. I know there's a way to do this online, besides emailing me.
All right, thank you. Also, one other thought or question.
Yeah.
I've been associated with IGMA off and on over the years. Even went to Castine, Maine on a scholarship at one time back in the 80s. What's my question? I'll think of it. I'll get back.
Edward, do you want to go ahead and ask your question while Stuart's thinking of his?
Sure. This is to anyone, I guess, in the guild. Do you consider like miniature automatons part of what you would consider miniature?
Absolutely. There's a couple called Angela and Lauren St. Ledger. That's what they do. They make miniature automata.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, I've got it. So I've noticed that most of the events, conferences, schools, shows are mostly in the eastern part of the US. Is there anything happening in the western part of the US that is more available?
Well, yeah,
That's
Stuart,
interesting.
Mike here. Yeah, there's some shows on the West Coast. I've attended the Good Sam show, which is in San Jose. It happens in October. So if you just Google Good Sam, you're going to get it. Okay. And that's one that's nicely attended with a great group of artists, and so that's one that comes to mind. Anybody else can chime in.
Yeah, Good Sam it's a good miniature show. I'll be there too this year, God willing, and COVID allowing. But also we occasionally have guild study programs on the West Coast. We had one, I think, in Pasadena, associated with the Green and Green houses.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We've
tried miniature shows out there, but they weren't well attended, so it's never really taken off.
One other thing too that I'd like to bring up, the Guild now has started a program called GVL, which stands for Guild Virtual Learning. These are Zoom classes. I was involved with sort of the beta test last summer. It went really great. They're online classes. They're coming up again here in early March. If you go to, if you simply Google IGMA.
Hey, Michael, I've been adding the links as you guys are talking.
Oh, Linda, awesome. Okay, so
there
Pretty much there's the IGMA link I added, the Good Sam link, the GVL.
awesome.
So if you guys look in the chat later, there's a whole bunch of links. I'm actually the show director for the September show, and we'd love to have you guys attend and see what we do and collaborate a lot more with you guys.
Excellent.
Right on.
I'll be saving the chats too. So if anybody needs information that they didn't get, feel free to reach out to me. Bruce, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, well, speaking of collaborations, Amy, how about does the Toy Miniature Museum have any kind of meetups, shows, any kind of thing where the IGMA people and the APMM people and the Precision Museum people would come to show things or see other people's things?
Well, we have a few things that we've done along those lines. In 2017, I already mentioned that we did Miniature Masterworks, where 68 artists came from all over the world and showed and sold their work. And we had gallery tours with artists whose work was in the museum collection. We're planning to do that again, tentatively September of 2023. We also have a mailing list you can get on where we send a monthly newsletter out to miniature artists. It goes out the second Friday of the month. It just went out last week, I think. And you can just sign up for that on our website. And then we've been doing a program, and Nell did one for us, as well as Bill Robertson, called What's on Your Workbench. And those have been really well received. And those are all virtual programs. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you should be able to find those and view them. And we don't have one scheduled right now, but we will be scheduling one sometime in the next few months. And if you go to our website too, you can also just sign up to get our weekly newsletter and just get information in general about the museum.
Thank you.
Well, we're getting very close to the half hour after 5, my time, Eastern time. And we're thrilled that you all joined us. Are there any passing or parting words? Any last comments? Anyone who hasn't spoken who'd like to say something? I don't know if there's somebody from the American Precision Museum on the call, but if you are, please come forward and we'd love to hear from you or from anybody else who's on the call who'd like to say something.
I'm a little late to the meeting because I misread the time frame. I just wasn't thinking in terms of the hour difference. Sorry.
Yes.
And I'm Dave Laverick from Kansas City. Used to work at Garmin as the model maker / designer. And there was some conversation that I wanted to key in on about miniaturists having a difficult time or wanting to have a more robust source of wood, lumber to work with. Was there anybody here that was interested in that part of the conversation?
Yeah, Dave, I didn't realize who you were. Michael has alluded to your up and coming offerings. I do architectural models from time to time, and I am absolutely interested in your scale lumber offerings. I was intending to get in touch with you, so
Okay.
I'm glad to have you on with us.
Good.
If I can get an understanding of what you have, I can broaden my horizons on the architectural front.
All right.
So it's a win-win for all of us.
Well, I've been working on preparing for this for about 25 years. And I'm coming out of retirement and going back to work for myself. So let me send you or if anybody would like to put a list together, a mailing list, I can send out samples, which is what I'm working on now. It's just something I could send out for folks to play with. So let me have your, mailing, someplace where I can put this stuff in the mail and get you some samples of it.
Okay, I'll pick you up. I'll send you an email off of, you're in the APMM now, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, Dave has joined as our newest member.
Brand new member, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll soon have a page on our website, a directory listing for him and his company. So we'll be able to get.
I'll get in touch with you directly, Dave. I think my architect will have a meltdown if I can start to offer him scale lumber.
Okay.
Accents in his model work that I do.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
He's white on white at the moment, and his forte is staircases. So.
All right. Well, I think we might be able to rouse.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great situation for us all.
Okay.
David, would you like to put your email address or your website or wherever you have in the chat right now?
All right.
So that people who aren't APMM members can have access to it too?
Absolutely.
And what's your company name?
Real Small Lumber.
And by the way, you don't have to be a member of the APMM to use our website. We have all sorts of resources and references that are not limited to members only. So you can feel free to browse the site. And if there's something you don't see or something you want access to that's sort of behind the paywall, just contact me. Our community is more about growing the community and increasing our interactions than it is about gaining members. It's, we'd love to have a million members, but we don't need to have a million paying members. We just need a really strong community that supports each other and keeps the conversation going. So
good. That's a good perspective. I like that.
Good, thank you.
I have a question for Dave. Do you carry, I think it's Stephen Good's lumber? I may have been on your website, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I haven't published anything yet, so whatever you saw, you may have, it's not me.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Just real quick introduction to it. what I've been doing the last 25 years has been collecting wood of various species with really, really tight wood grain. Otherwise, anywhere from 20 to 60 years of growth in an inch. And when you cut it a certain way, it just looks like small boards. That's what I'm working on.
Interesting.
Okay, I'm salivating now, Dave. Thanks.
All right, so I'm saving the chat now, and I will have the information that anybody's put up available if you don't have a chance to grab it. And of course, this is being recorded, and I will put a link up for the recording on our website within a few days. And so if you want to check back and just review it or forward it on to someone else, you can feel free to do that. Anyone who's on this call or elsewhere, whether you're a member or not, you can still access most of these meetups. A few of them are members only, but most of them we open them up to the public because, again, we want more people to interact and be a part of the community. So watch our website there. If you scroll down from the main page where Bill Robertson is featured so prominently, one of our speakers for our virtual conference, you can see a link that shows all the meetups that are coming up. And I try to post them in far in advance, but I'm a one-person office, and it's sometimes a challenge to keep up with all these makers. But I appreciate you all being here, and feel free to get in contact with me or with anyone else who's been on this call if you'd like to explore more. But I'm going to, unless there's some other comments or questions, I'm going to sign off now. And thank you all very much for being here. It's been a fantastic day. Oh, Bruce, you have something?
If you found us through Facebook, the APMM has a Facebook page, and I'm in charge of trying to make sure all these announcements get on Facebook too.
Yay, thank you, Bruce. All right, wonderful. Well, thanks again for everyone for being here. Amy, a special thanks to you for all that your museum does and for all that you do. Thanks for being with us today and sharing.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed talking with you.
All right,
Thanks.
take care.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.